come once again to discuss things.
Hello, I am a geek for fun, and today we'll be doing what?
No. Get the fuck out of here with your what ifs and your geek for funness and your taking over of this channel with your weeby bullshit. It's time for what this channel was meant to be: educational entertainment for the enlightened. Welcome to Geeky Gentleman History Month, the month in which we discuss the contributions that geeky gentlemen have made to history, but that have been ignored by a biased educational system, except not at all. Hi everyone, I'm back.
Woo! Damn, just drove straight into that.
I mean, he just set up such a perfect opportunity. I just needed him to talk for like a little like blip to come up on the audio, but then he started to go like, "Oh, I'm gonna do my intro." I'm like, "No, get the fuck out of here."
He talks big, don't he? He talks real big now.
yeah, I do talk real big because I can maintain a consistent upload schedule on a Sunday and shit. That's why I can talk big.
That's true.
Man.
I know.
Real shit today.
This is how I thank my friends for taking over my YouTube channel for 6 months. Is I just like crush all of his self-esteem.
I mean, his first mistake was putting me back on the show.
I know, really, like so inconsistent. Oh man, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. Break lasted a lot longer than I expected it to. Part of that was just, having a child was more work than I thought it'd be at night, particularly. I don't know what I expected, but I thought it would be. I just thought she'd be asleep earlier, more consistently, and that didn't quite happen at first.
See, these are children. Why would you expect that?
I don't know, Steve. Go in my brain, come back out. It makes perfect sense. And so then on top of that, then Alfie and I started doing some writing streams, and I didn't want to take 3 days off from the family to record and write. So I was like, all right, we'll finish this thing, and then after that, I'm like, I really need a break again now. So it just turned into a whole thing. But here we are. It's November. It's Geeky Gentleman History Month, and we've done one for. I did a video on the presidential election starting with 2012 with Manos over on his channel. Did one on here for 2016. And here we are 4 years later to talk about 2020, a presidential election which at the moment of recording has not been called. I mean, it should have been. It should have been conceded by this point, but we'll get into that. Yeah, I don't know. It's talking about elections is one of those things because you're not just with American politics, at least, you're not just talking about one election. You're talking about like the last year to the last 4 years of government. Is how it tends to go. And Jesus fucking Christ, it's been a really long 4 years, guys.
It's been a really, really long 4 years. Jesus Christ.
It's gonna be a really long 4 years to come, too. I don't know. After 2016 just being this massive, like, gut punch, I probably shouldn't have allowed myself to hope that things would get better, that this would be, if not a landslide, there's that talk of blue wave and like all of Biden and the Democrats polling better, and just getting more of a centrist government in place instead of an openly fascist one. And it doesn't look to be that. It looks like Biden is going to eke out a win in a couple of states, with admittedly some surprising flip states, so, good for him, I guess. and that he will have a smaller ruling majority in the House than Trump had to deal with the Democratic majority in the House, and basically the exact same Senate makeup that Obama had for his last 4 years. So that's just fucking peachy. It's just a lot. Like, I probably shouldn't have allowed myself to hope, but I was like, there was talk of at the debate where they're like, oh, don't trust Biden, he'll stack the court. I'm like, Biden would never have the balls to stack the fucking court, but like, damn, could you imagine if like the House just did it on its own?
I know we all make fun of Biden's line where he's like, nothing will fundamentally change, but when you look at these results, nothing can literally fundamentally change at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if he wanted to do something, he couldn't.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's kind of funny because Steve and I are pretty depressingly engrossed in American politics, kind of out of, survival.
Yeah, not a choice.
Yeah, but Alfie's, of course, a Brit, and he even, like, suggested, maybe I shouldn't be here because it's about the American election. I'm like, no, I want to know what the fucking world thinks of this absolute shitstorm.
As the representative of the rest of us. Me, straight, able-bodied white man.
Yeah, the voice of the downtrodden.
The voice of the champion of the oppressed. Clearly, yeah, it's been interesting because, unlike, there's always this vibe around America, with the rest of the world, that we all hate you, because America thinks it's the shit. It thinks it's the most power. There's always that thing of like the president is the most powerful person in the world. This is the center of global politics and all of that. But really, when you take a look back at history, it hasn't changed, and that's all been mainly bluster. That's all been mainly. Very rarely does America change politics in the rest of the world the way it wanted to. Normally it leads to the direct opposite result or something catastrophic, but not in the catastrophic result that they wanted. But with Trump, it really has, and it's kind of the case with all kinds of fascists, the victory of Trump was a modern, loud reminder to people that, oh yeah, people still will vote if you just are. You don't need to hide it. Is kind of the lesson people took away from it. You got people in the UK like Nigel Farage or UKIP or just anything in the right wing media just being like, oh, America says it's okay to just be openly racist and just run policy on just that now instead of trying to sugarcoat anything. Sick, let's do it. And they just went to town with it to the point of where, consequently, with the American election, we had the whole Brexit thing where the UK decided that, oh, well, we don't want to be part of the EU anymore. We can have just trade deals with Trump and everything. And our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, like, to the point where if you look at him, he looks like off-brand Trump. It's fucking ridiculous.
He looks like Trump's British cousin or some shit.
Yeah. Legitimately. It's, like, baffling at how you couldn't write a better, oh, yeah, other countries just start copying Trump. Literally.
Yeah, no, that's definitely been the thing that America's, I don't know, the American presidency is always such an interesting position to me because I've always fundamentally believed that the American president gets entirely too much credit for when things go good and entirely too much blame for when things go bad. And that's not like me trying to be an apologist or anything. It's just like, literally, Bill Clinton was not the reason that the American economy was great in the 90s. Fucking Bush entirely on his own was not the reason that the economy sucked in the late 2000s. Obama is not the reason for this, that, or the other thing. It's like they're just, it's a convenient face, but like very clearly, a lot of what has happened both in the country and around the world over the last couple of years has a direct line to decisions made by the Trump presidency. Like, legitimately, I remember seeing someone say something early on in the pandemic. This would be like April, maybe early May. And it was, if Hillary Clinton was president right now, we'd all be at movies and on the beach and stuff. And I'm like, okay, no. I'll give him this. The coronavirus was probably going to happen regardless, and we probably would have had to have some kind of lockdown. But just disastrous choice after disastrous choice, after not wanting to play the blame game, after all these things kept happening. And now there's around, what was it, on election day there were 230,000 Americans dead from the coronavirus. And like, that is just, to think that a lack of cohesive vision, a lack of willingness to do the hard thing because you're worried about not getting reelected, that all led to 250,000 people's deaths is kind of insane. So maybe I need to reevaluate how much credit I give and don't give to the office of the presidency going forward. Or maybe it's just incompetent decisions from the president are amplified exponentially. It's hard to say.
I feel like it's got to be a little bit more of the latter, because the issue you sort of run into is the presidency, like you said, is a really good face for a lot of things. And for a long time, that face was sort of just enough to bypass doing anything meaningful and getting a lot of credit. I mean, this is basically all 8 years of Obama, which is just, he talks very well, he does a little bit here and there, but in general, his ability to speak very well and connect to a certain demographic gives him the image to get all the credit for all the good things and none of the blame for any of the bad things. And Trump kind of just takes that up to 11, where he's nothing but the image. He's nothing but the tweets and the scolding and making shit up after making shit up constantly, to the point where it's not effective to argue with him, but it's also impractical to do anything he says. And so everyone underneath him just starts copying the same sort of strategy of, we're just going to keep making shit up. We're just going to stay in line with whatever bullshit he says. And so even if the rest of government functions and does what it's supposed to around the world and in America, to where it takes a lot of the burden off the president, when the president's image is literally nothing but a facade, and everyone else decides to be nothing else but a facade, it sort of amplifies the effect that they have, to the point where Trump denies certain clear evidences and truths about coronavirus, and now no one can believe anything about coronavirus, so everything just gets exponentially worse.
Like, the one that is just amazing to me is that anti-masker is a political ideology or a political identity at this point, and I'm just like, you're just an irresponsible person. You're just an asshole. You've turned being an asshole into a political identity, which, I mean, I guess respect for that, if nothing else. It's like, so there's all of that to accompany with it, and then there's just the fact that, I mean, can we just talk about the fact that Joe Biden's entire platform was being the most electable candidate, and he still almost lost? Like, that's the thing for me that's really eking. 4 years ago, or I guess 5 years ago at this point, 2015, Democratic conventions, Bernie versus Hillary kind of thing. I voted for Bernie in the primary. I thought he didn't stand a goddamn chance in spit. Of course, things came out that the Democrats, cooked the books basically to make sure he wouldn't get elected as the nominee. But like, if you asked me 5 years ago, there's record of me saying this and stuff like on Twitter and whatnot of I just don't think that a socialist has the chance to become president of this country. The stigma attached to socialism is just so like huge that there's no way a socialist could ever become president in this country. And so that was my justification for voting for Hillary Clinton and stuff. You fast forward 4 years and I'm just like, running the safe candidate seems to have been so much more of a detriment, at least arguably, because the margins that Biden has won by are so incredibly tight, tighter than they have any rational reason for being outside of just this country is not only racist, it is deeply racist, deeply fascistic. The margins that Biden has won by are just so small and it's so frightening, and yet his whole thing was he's the most electable. He's going to be the one that brings everything back to normal, which is to say a lot of the same effects that Trump has, but with better paint.
Well, so then this is the fucking problem with everyone that says socialists won't get elected, with Biden's the most electable candidate, with wanting to move towards the center, which is, if you're on the right wing, anything that is not the right wing might as well be socialism, and you're going to brand every person who isn't on the right as a socialist. There was a joke floating around where it seemed like Bernie was very clearly going to be the nominee, that the Trump playbook was going to create a bunch of attack ads that were anti-Bernie. And then people were joking when Biden got the nominee that Trump just decided not to switch his plans and he just kept all of his Bernie attack ads and switched the names over. And there's a little bit of truth to that, I'm sure. I'm sure Trump expected to run against Bernie on some level for a little while there. But on the other hand, it really doesn't matter. Like, you could have, like, literally, if Michael Bloomberg was the nominee, they would call him a socialist. It literally
and he's
doesn't
a fucking
matter.
billionaire. yeah. No, that's definitely the case. Like, follow Maddie Washburn on Twitter, who's part of the Watchtower database, channel devoted to the DCAU mostly, and his father is a conservative talk show host kind of thing, and he doesn't talk to his dad anymore, but it's kind of funny to just see him like roasting his dad's Twitter account every so often, and like he just posts a screenshot of something his dad retweeted where it's like, Kamala Harris is a communist. He's like, I have no idea how I ever thought my dad was smart. Yeah, Kamala Harris is not a communist. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are just so incredibly, at best, centrist, if not like slightly right, and in kind of a global perspective, that it's just amazing. So yeah, you might as well just like fucking get one of the Parkland kids to dress up and like get two of the Parkland kids to fucking sit on each other's shoulders with a trench coat and just run as like blatant communists, because goddamn, they're gonna just treat it that way anyway. Why not at least try? Because I mean, really, what do you have to lose if all of the probably the centrist or the vote blue no matter who thing is, they always assume that, like, oh, well, we can win over some people on the right. And, like, I think that's why you have a Biden presidency and you're going to have a Republican Senate, is because this belief that we could possibly win over people on the right. And maybe you did. I'm sure there's, like, the fucking Lincoln Project group and stuff. You had people that voted against Trump but still voted for Republican senators. And going to the middle with Biden just left so many people, took the wind out of their sails, left them completely disinterested, that they didn't bother voting at all. So you've got like this fucking wet blanket of a president who, by the way, goddamn, Biden is not a very good showman. He's kind of, infamous for really bad political gaffes and stuff. We're seeing Trump again in 4 years. Like, he is going to run again. And the Republican Party, like, did so much to try to be in line with him during his presidency that I don't see how anyone's going to have a legitimate case against him at this point, and in a primary that is completely catered to his voters. He's completely disappointed any belief I had that this country has made any social progress in pulling out, you know, like the fucking Biden gave a speech the other night where he's like, well, regardless of this election, we've already proven that we've gotten the most votes of any candidate that has ever run for president. And like, you're right, Joe, you're absolutely right. And the person who got the second most votes of anyone that has ever run for president is now Donald Trump. And that's shocking and terrifying. So like, the fact he's gonna run again in 4 years, if he's alive, you know, fingers crossed. He's gonna run again in 4 years.
Well,
and any mistake Joe makes along the way is gonna be fodder for that. So great.
Joe's gonna have to pull a Ford, right? Because if Trump runs again in 4 years, he's winning in a landslide, and Biden is not the person to beat him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably not. I don't know. There's part of me that thinks enough people will just be like fucking done with it that they'll at least like that the Republican Party might try to stop them in the primary again, but who fucking knows? Ted Cruz is probably still really fucking bitter, so that could be fun to see again. But yeah, no, it's terrifying. It's legitimately terrifying. Like, there's this sense of, oh, okay, now we can breathe just a little bit easier. We're not going to take our foot off the gas, but now I'm like, I hate to already be thinking of 2024, but I'm already thinking of 2024. So this is fun. This is a fun time to just see how things have devolved, how the safe option. You know, like, you know what it reminds me of is, I'm not a sports fan, but I'll occasionally watch football, and what drives me crazy about football is when they fucking pussyfoot, and it's like, okay, well, we're not ahead yet, but we can go for, like, you know, punts and field goals, and we can inch toward victory. And I'm like, and I hate, like, the idea of the fourth down kick as opposed to trying to make it to that next first yard line, or first down line. And I'm like, you know what? That's what the fucking Democratic Party is. It's the fucking, like, punts and field goals of a political party. And I'm like, you might, in some sense, have a sound political strategy on paper, but goddamn, your shit's uninspiring.
It's honestly,
Someone's gonna make a fucking movie about that, about the team that fucking punted and field goaled their way to victory.
it's honestly pretty depressing because the argument for Biden is Trump is absolutely terrible. He's killed 230,000 people. He's clearly unhinged, fascistic in every possible way. And Biden is just that, but not with the leg on the accelerator. Like, the argument for a lot of people is, okay, the climate is what's important right now, and regardless of how imperfect all of these candidates are, Biden is better for the climate. And Biden's better for the climate insofar as he believes that we should possibly explore the option that the planet is dying. And at that point, what the fuck's the difference? So one of my favorite things about when I was teaching philosophy is that to teach someone Kant, you basically have to explain to them that Kant has very extreme positions that commit you to nothing, which is why they're kind of genius in a way. So the best way to explain anything he ever says is you say, okay, here's what he actually says: that your morality is universal, or that all art is subjective, or whatever, or that everything is objective, or whatever like that. And you just caveat it by saying, he's not actually saying this. He's saying these are the conditions for the possibility of it being this. So it's not actually this, but if it was this, here's how you'd get there. And that's literally everything Biden stands for on everything that's remotely progressive. It's not literally this progressive thing. It's the chances of there possibly being this progressive thing. Mm-hmm. And if that's the difference, it really does beg the question, or raise the question, why does it matter, right? Like, ContraPoints did a video a few weeks ago on voting and why it's important to vote, and I agree with a majority of it. But she brought up this point that the Democrats and the Republicans are, at the end of the day, fundamentally different people. And so she brought up this list of, like, here's the policy positions Democrats have, which are fundamentally different than the policy positions the Republicans have. And okay, fine, if you look on paper, these are things that these two people oppose. But if you look in practice, and you look in law, and you look in history, none of these positions have been marked out in a way that's affected by the Democrats. The Democrats can say all they want that they believe in X, Y, and Z, but they have almost never acted on them. And if they haven't acted on them, what actually makes them fundamentally different than the Republicans, besides the fact that they say these things? And I'm sorry,
it is
but saying
shallow.
I believe in global warming over and over again does not stop global warming.
No, absolutely, and like that's the funny thing is there's this whole like, oh, there's a great Twitter post from Kamala where she's like, Joe Biden believes in science, and then like the next day, Joe Biden will not stop fracking. What are you? Joe Biden will listen to scientists. Joe Biden will not stop fracking. Joe Biden believes in global warming. Something's gone amiss here. There's not a logical through line. These are slogans. These are cheery campaign things. These are things to say to make things sound good and feel good. And maybe there's some kind of fucking fancy math you could do to say we could keep fracking and natural gas exploration and mining and still do other things to stop global warming. Like, I don't know, fucking eat Jeff Bezos. But just there's such a like lack of comprehension of these things, and more just this sounds good. The thing for me about the Democratic Party is it is 100% performative. It's all just things that look good and seem good, and like, oh man, that picture of Nancy Pelosi kneeling down, taking a 1 minute of silence in the halls of Congress, that's going to look so good. And then that picture of Nancy Pelosi ripping up the president's speech in the middle of the State of the Union, that's going to be fucking like in the history book. That's going to be so powerful. But it doesn't do anything. Like, really, if you want a powerful image, she should have stabbed him in the fucking back. Where's my Caesar? That's I need my et tu brute. Fucking Mike, I would be a Mike Pence stan if he had pulled an et tu brute on Donald Trump. That'd have been my shit right there. There's my big symbolic powerful moment that I need politically that would actually accomplish something and look really good in a textbook, Please laugh. I'm gonna sound much more dangerous if you don't laugh.
No, because this isn't a laughing matter. Let's do it. Let's get more Caesars in government. Because I think that's the biggest thing about the Democratic Party that you guys are kind of touching on, is that the reason why they're so scared to take forward action or to take a stance, really, aside from like the most middle of the ground polled stance that you can. So like we support this, but oh no, we don't support this to this extent, is because like it's really, the left wing is so divided. There's so many different things wrapped up in that, where different people have different agendas of what they want to see accomplished to different degrees, and there's a shit ton of infighting. Whereas the right wing, completely fucking unified. There's just as many different types of bigotry and fascism and things that people hate, but they can all come together because they can guarantee, like, well, if our boy gets in, we're all going to have a shot at whatever we want to happen. That's not the case on the left. So that's why you get people like Biden who try to make that the case, who try to be the universal activist. And that's not how activism works. You can't not take a stand to make change. It doesn't work. You can't vaguely gesture in the side of change or you're right. So when the Black Lives Matter campaign went going, and then like Instagram was just flooded with people posting like a black tweet of like the things, but no one was actually donating or like going out and happening thing. Is that's what Biden appeals to? Biden appeals to that person. And even then, he doesn't really appeal to them. It's just they're more likely to be like, oh well, I guess, because it's that idea of.
It's the mask thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like that's Biden's whole thing is wear a mask. I'm like, yes, that is the socially responsible thing to do, Joe Biden. You are absolutely correct. But like you're trying to do the socially responsible thing into a hashtag political movement. And I mean, I guess great if we have to shame people into doing it. Whatever the fuck works to get people to put on a fucking mask and God fucking damn it, put it over your fucking nose. But like it's not about the mask to Biden. It's about, oh well, doesn't this convey a powerful image? Isn't this a aesthetically powerful idea? And sure, but there's nothing to back it up. It's all aesthetics. You know, so it's really funny because Trump is all the aesthetic, all the veneer, all the, you know, the emperor has no clothes. It's all the, oh, I'm a billionaire, oh, my Trump stakes, and he's, you know, he has this fucking playbook of doing things. My favorite was the repeated, just look at this stack of paper, just look at these, you know, where he just rolls it out and puts a bunch of fucking stakes on a table and tells you that he's a billionaire. And it's almost parody at that point, but like there's an aesthetic to it, and some people just, they see that and that's good enough for them because that's all the research they're going to do. You know, they and to Steve's point earlier, you had the underlings trying to do the same thing, and admittedly Trump's a better salesman about it, because when Spicer put the fucking like, here's the current healthcare plan and here's the Republican plan, and just look how much simpler it is because it's like two different stacks of paper. And someone goes, okay, can we look at the paper? No. It's just like, Jesus fucking Christ, it's the dumbest shit in the world. So I don't know, it's all the aesthetic, and unfortunately, you can't beat Trump at the aesthetic because his audience is dumber. There are people who don't tune into politics who actively believe conspiracy theories. That's why you've got fucking QAnon and all this fucking garbage following him around. There are people that are in love with conspiracy theories. And like that's what the fucking Democrats don't even understand how to properly roll with a conspiracy theory. You could have just kept like complaining about Russian interference in the election and never actively done anything to try to suss it out, because you fucking knew you weren't going to be able to do anything and act on it anyway. You knew that the party lines were too thick to actually do anything about it, even if you found very hard, clear evidence. Could have done so much more to just fucking stoke the fires if you just fucking kept that going for 4 years. It would have been beautiful.
That's the issue, isn't it, though? Because, like, wow, we can't stoop to their level, Ian. We can't, that's, they're breaking the rules and doing all of these things, and, like, we have to stick to our principles, and that's how we'll show them.
They'll go low and we'll go high.
It's exactly
and I'm
that.
just like,
It's the. It's so infuriating because
my friend.
Go ahead, Steve.
Point about they go low, we go high thing, which is if someone goes low and you go high, you're going to miss and they're going to punch you in the balls. Like, yeah, that's absolutely right. That's why you don't go high.
Never play a game with someone. Like, it's like these people never fucking play chess. Like, I don't understand like how you can get to a position of political power and have zero strategic atom at all. It's baffling to me because, like, don't fucking play the game where everyone else is allowed to set the standards and then you'll continue to do what they want and act as if you're winning or like making a point. Like all you have to do is look at fucking Obama's like he was proud of that. He was like, oh yeah, so many days until a vote, so many days until a vote. It's embarrassing. Like you let those fuckers play you so hard. Like why are you? That's not a moral. It is the. I mean, again, for the audience and I guess the comic book fans in there, it's a bit of a sore spot for Ian, but it's already gotten funnier as of late. It is the Jeff Johns type of heroism of we'll just say we're gonna do good things, but we'll never take action. But we have the hope, and that's the fucking difference. Is the fact of like when a child is throwing a tantrum. You don't just agree with them and be like, well, but I'm not the child. I'm not going to go to that. You take the fucking toys away. There's not a debate. There's not a moral aperture. Democracy will not sort itself out. It was built by corrupt people to begin with who didn't want to get black people to vote and has only been a continuous system of finding ways to oppress people. It's not this magnificent shining beacon that was handed down by fucking Moses. So in order to make it work for justice, you have to actively fight and play with it to make it work. Because the other side clearly fucking understands that, which is amazing. Because as much as we've been talking about like how insane Republicans are and how insane Trump supporters are, is they clearly know how to stack the deck in their favor and use the system to how they want it. Whereas the Democrats just have no... It's almost as if it's not conscious at this point, which I have no idea how it isn't. Like, are they just resigned to this fate? Or do they genuinely believe somehow magically it will all sort itself out as long as they don't try?
You know, it's interesting because you're reminding me of two films that do things very blatantly to take what the public perception, what the elementary school version, or not even elementary school, the public school version of what people are taught about these historical figures, and do things to subvert and show, you know, it's a movie, so it's exaggerated or it's changed to emphasize a point, but to do things to show more of the actual history of what went on. And that's Lincoln by Steven Spielberg and Selma. Lincoln shows that the process of getting, the Emancipation Proclamation, or not that, getting the 25th Amendment passed to end slavery. It's not like this, oh, it's the morally right thing to do. He waits until, like, the fucking lamed up Congress is there. He waits until certain senators and House members are gone and not going to be able to get back in time. He stacks the deck. He does all these political maneuverings to ensure everything in his favor. And it even goes so far as to show that, I really like the scene in that movie where they bring Lincoln a letter from Jefferson Davis where it says, "Dear Mr. President, I am ready to sit down and negotiate terms of the surrender of the Confederacy." And the fucking chamber, the House chamber and the Senate say, "We will not even think about holding a vote on a matter like this unless you tell us that the president has not received word from the Confederacy." And Lincoln looks at the letter and is like, "So they wanted to know if I've received word from the Confederacy when they sent you over here?" And they go, "Yeah, have you?" "Not when they sent you over here, no." Because the letter came after they sent the messenger. He's like, "Yeah, fucking no, I didn't. Not a word." But it's like, it's taking that thing of cheating. And I don't really care how true to life that scene that Spielberg put together was. I think the point of what it is trying to show is more important. To get the right thing done, sometimes you have to do the dirty thing. Just roll up your sleeves and get in the fucking mud. And Selma also does this because there's this perception of Martin Luther King Jr. as this activist of nonviolence and peace, and he just He just sat there and marched and got his butt kicked, and that was it until it mobilized a nation through moral outrage to do something. When Selma shows, no, he purposefully staged his marches and nonviolence protests in places that would have the biggest, most violent reaction. And sometimes they didn't work out, and people actually rioted. And he's like, yeah, well, the riots are going to kind of happen. I'm going to try to... we're not going to pay as much attention to those. We're going to try to get the media to focus on the nonviolent ones. And it fucking worked. Just these ideas that you just have to... Like, there's the public school version of how these things are put out there, of, doing it the right way. And those stories are told in order to pacify and neuter any momentum these social movements can have, because they're told they're not doing it right. And so that's how you have someone like Donald Trump saying, oh, I believe in the advancement of the black race and everything, and they just got to do it right, like Martin Luther King Jr. He was one of the good ones. And when in reality that was not the case at all, of course. So yeah, it's a pretty fucking crazy thing. I guess we should talk more about the nature of just what's happening right the fuck now. So let's see here. I've voted in every election since 2010, so that's 10 years of elections for me. And I have never had a night where the race is not called, both for president, major races like Senate, House leaders. It's been a couple small things like, runoffs for fucking attorney general or whatever, but nothing significant has ever not been called. And here we are, Tuesday the 3rd. Recording this on Friday the 11th, if anyone's actually curious. Here we are on Tuesday the 3rd, and the race for president has still not been called. As it sits now, there are a couple states in play, those being Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Alaska. Some people put Arizona in place, some people don't. In order to win, Trump needs to win all of those states. Meanwhile, Biden is currently leading by razor-thin margins in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. I looked it up. Georgia's I think 4,000 votes, which is just... earlier today it was 2,000 votes. More people went to my high school. Yeah, so it's kind of insane to be looking at this, and just I've never thought I'd experienced an election like this before. It's kind of crazy.
It's
do
also...
you want to... Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, do you want to, while we're talking about specific things, do you want to talk about what the current meltdown is? But I think it also says a lot of the bailouts. Like, where the fuck did... they are mysterious how all these bailouts came out. They're obviously rigging the election. I refuse to leave office until I'm kicking and screaming. We're gonna... I tweeted this as well, and I saw that you liked it, and I was just like, man, we've been waiting a while for the Superman and Lois reveal of Tyler Hoechlin in the suit. I'm like, man, put it on. Drive over there. If you're in fucking Superman costume, no one's gonna stop you. You want to get an American historical moment? Fucking Superman dragging Donald Trump out would be a definitive fucking patriotic. That would be a win for everyone involved. That would just be...
Oh no, definitely. I mean, he's his words, not mine. They'll have to drag me out kicking and screaming. I'm like, good, let's do it through the streets. I'll wear my nice leather shoes, take them off to show, proper respect. And then afterwards you can go hang out with your Italian friend, Musso something. And that's about as specific as I want to get, because I might get a knock on my fucking door for that one. But just, goddamn, ugh.
Conservatives threaten us with a good time.
I know, right? Like, just Jesus Christ. I would love to see Trump's presidency end the same way Mussolini's leadership did. That'd be, chef's kiss right there. I mean, like, his little election started with him being like, "Oh yeah, I liked this quote from Mussolini." I'm like, whoa, red flag. We like the color red. We want red flags, but we also have the thin blue line. Oh. That's the real move. That's how I'm gonna fucking own the cons. Is I'm gonna fucking tell them that the thin blue line supports the Democrats, and then they'll be like burning that flag or some shit. It's gonna be hilarious. They'll make a thin red line flag. It'll be great. Anyway, yeah, the whole situation with mail-in ballots. I think the best one I've seen, the best take on it I've seen, is a fucking SpongeBob meme, where it's Patrick and like a villain guy, and it's the one where he's like trying to explain something to an idiot, and he goes, "Okay, so you told all your supporters not to vote by mail. Yes. So it stands to reason that most mail-in ballots are gonna be for Joe Biden. Yes. And you realize that there are a lot of mail-in ballots this year because of the pandemic that you sat over. Yes. Okay. So as they count mail-in ballots, which are the last thing that you counted, then Joe Biden's gonna pull ahead in the polls. Fraud." Just like...
And the thing is that I kind of want to ask with that, but at the same time kind of answer my own question, because like it's Trump. Bernie, I think it was like a week ago or maybe a couple of weeks ago, went on Jimmy Kimmel and basically predicted this. And he predicted it more so from a sense of this is a strategy that Trump will use. But at the same time, Trump's so delusional and so good at believing his own bullshit that you could legitimately believe he genuinely thinks this. And that is the fact of like, oh, if we encourage everyone on our side not to vote with mail, we'll be able to then, when that happens, say, "Oh wow, this is statistically impossible." That's the tweet I've been seeing all the fucking time from Trump supporters is, "This is statistically impossible. There's no way this could happen. Check the votes, check the ballots. This is impossible." That seems to me, given just how, again, like you go into this knowing like okay, so this is our plan to how to cast reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, it's not reasonable. It's just,
yeah, exactly.
It's just there because Trump, Trump launched himself into the political sphere with two events. One was in the late 80s, 90s, talking about the Central Park Five, trying to get a bunch of people who were wrongfully accused arrested. And then there was, of course, the Obama birther thing. The man is steeped in conspiracy and he understands the power of the conspiracy. He saw the writing on the wall. 230,000 people died under his administration. He saw what happened in 2018. He could tell that his time was at least challengeable, if not limited. It makes sense to try to, have a backup plan and undermine things. And it's just fucking nuts, man, that there's so much like riled up and hatred. And part of me knows that it's not just that people that vote red are idiots. I mean, they are, but that's besides the point. Because I know that like Democrats and other leftists fall for the same fucking shit. There's always memes and things circulating that are like demonstrably untrue, but because they're about our guy, oh, we don't care. But like, just I saw a great little news clip of fucking reporter, and he's just at a ballot counting location, and the media are pulling up in vans to go inside and record stuff because it's the most covered news story of the fucking century. And they're bringing in their camera equipment to set up, because when you're doing, live remotes and stuff, you got a lot of equipment that needs to be set up, and they're just hauling in their camera equipment, and you got the fucking protesters outside the voting booth. They're bringing in more ballots. You can see the suitcase right there filled with ballots. I see them. I see the ballots in there. Those ones don't have the watermark on them or anything. It's a fucking sealed case with a fucking camcorder or a tripod inside. And I'm just like, y'all are fucking stupid, but just like frothing at the mouth to want to believe this, to accept anything to believe this. And the cult of personality around it just legitimately terrifies me, because you remember the 2016 primary race between Trump and Cruz, and just how fucking venomous that became, to the point where Trump accused Cruz's dad of being fucking the sniper on the grassy knoll that killed John F. Kennedy. But there's, and yet Cruz has come out on television to say that the Democrats are rigging the election to hurt Trump, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna be the one running against him in 4 years, right? That's still gonna be you. What are you doing? You can just be quiet. It'll be fine, man.
You are starting to see, though, at least over the course of the last 24 hours, there are some Republicans who are starting to break ranks with Trump because they know he's not going to be in power anymore. Even fucking Ben Shapiro, of all people, was touting up how you needed to count the votes. Which, don't listen to anything Ben Shapiro says, but when he's right about something, you're kind of in dangerous water.
Mm-hmm. Who are they gonna sell it to, Ben? Fucking Aquaman.
That's the fucking thing about that, right? Of the and I hope as we get closer to just a straight up the cool, we'll see more of this, which might, depending on how many of them turn and then just abandon his screaming, depending on how bad Trump's exit is, which is going to be bad, but there's two types of bad it can be. Oh
man, I think he's going to burn down the White House. I legitimately think he's going to set fire to the White House.
He's either going to do that, he's either going to, and on the same spectrum of that, cry, shoot himself, walk out, or just make some sort of scene. Or he's going to say, which is the scary thing, just going to say, fuck it, and just nuke everyone and just kill us all. That's still that option, which is fucking terrifying. But there's...
the supervillain option.
The supervillain.
I can't imagine he would do that.
Exactly, right? It's just all of that boiled together. But so depending on how disastrous that turns out to be, I think is going to directly impact 2024, because depending on how many other people jump ship and are okay, Trump is, we need to just start fresh, rebuild, and kind of distance the Republican Party from the stigma and try and get our voter base and do things a little quieter this time. Trump was too loud and we didn't get that to work, but now we can maybe almost do the opposite of what Biden's doing, which is okay, so now if we start again, we can maybe sucker in the Democrats who were on the fence of Biden. We can bring them in because they won't vote for Bernie because he's socialist, and they won't vote for Biden because they don't like him. We'll start with a Republican candidate and we'll get all them and then we'll get in power. They'll either do that, which would be the smart thing, if of types of evil, would be that would be the intelligent evil, or they'll double down hard on Trump and they'll be okay, no, we're going to 2024, but we're going to act like we're still going for 2020 by contesting this all the fucking way and sticking with Trump for these next 4 years and making such a stink and making such a fuss that the Democrats can't do anything because they're too busy trying to damage control us in this election and just keep this wave going all the way, keep people angry for 4 years, which is fucking easy because they've shown that they can do that last time. And then Trump, like you said, wins in a landslide 2024. That's the stupider evil, but it's also the one which is probably more likely given their trend of tending to lean towards stupid evil. And that's scary. So I am hoping not just for catharsis, but also just for future that we continue to see, because I've seen a couple of media outlets start to finally just not even give Trump the time of day, but like the ones that aren't are probably going to double down hard, and then from that point they won't ever switch.
Well, and then the other scary option in all of this is the Trump TV network, which was in play before he became president and is probably going to come back around now because he's pissed at Fox News. And most of his right-wing commentators have sort of abandoned him at this point. And so if he decides to leave office and just run another TV station that's Fox News but worse, while he rolled back all the protections that we had in the communications department, we're going to be in for some of like the worst journalism of all time. We're just going to have
it's okay. He doesn't know how to run a
years.
business. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll tank in like 2 weeks. He won't even understand how to get ad revenue for it. It'll be fine.
I mean, that would be the hope, but I would just I feel like if you get to this point where the only news people watch are CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and Trump TV, like, that's 1984 to me. That's when you get to this point where people just fucking make up words and you completely lose your sense of self, and there is no politics and there is no personality outside of these spin zones.
I am the Ron Fink candidate.
Yes. Oh, he's so fucking bad.
Yeah, no, like I'm legitimately worried for the path 2024. There's, Democrats are already talking about what direction to go in for 2022, and I'm like, well, you got, AOC, who's out here talking about, look, when you look at the candidates that won, when you look at the states that flipped to Biden, it's because of these populations that are really resonating with further left policies, and the ones that you're on razor thin margins for and barely winning are the ones where you're just trying to court Republican votes. So if you actually cared, you'd go further left, but instead you keep trying to play to the center, and it keeps biting you in the fucking ass. And then meanwhile you've got the Democrats like, okay, obviously these far left policies just aren't attracting to the majority of Americans, so let's just go back and be more centrist message, safe streets, yada yada. I'm like, you fucking stupid.
And then the other thing, because when you look at the breakdown of the demographics for this election, in 2016, Trump got 90% of the Republican vote. This year, he got 93%. Like, you literally just ran you ran the furthest right Democrat you could have possibly run, with the exception of Michael Bloomberg, and you still got less Republican votes.
Mm-hmm. And it's because they, like, the majority of what you'll hear in interviews is, like, I don't like the man, I don't like his temperament, but he's getting the results I like. And that's, the filling the Supreme Court with, fucking rapists and whatever else. You've got, the tax plans that benefit only the wealthy, and he's a good fucking huckster. I'll give the man that. He's a good fucking huckster because he's somehow managed to convince people that they're making more money, even though they're, like, objectively not. And it's just, I don't know, it's a goddamn shit show that I am eternally perplexed by, I guess, is all it comes down to. I don't know what to think of the lack of thought that people have, and I always try to maintain some distance. I always get, like, really annoyed at the intellectual superiority attitude that I sense coming from a lot of things, and I'm sure somebody listening to this that's a Trumper is raging out at me or what the fuck ever. I don't care. I've long since given up ever trying to appeal to a general audience. What I'm just left with is this sense of like, is there anything I could do to imagine myself believing the way that these people do? And the only way I can see myself getting there is just completely tuning out from any level of critical thought about what's going on. Like, there's this weird sense that, oh, all the Democrats, everyone that voted for Biden really loves him and is completely bought into a socialist agenda, and it's just this complete misunderstanding of what the Democratic Party is. It's a big tent, and it's such a big fucking tent, it's collapsing upon itself. And then you've got Republicans that are so far into drinking the Kool-Aid and consumed by the cult of personality of Trump. And, like, to their fucking credit, there's way more of them. They united way harder than I ever thought would be, like, feasible. I really thought, and I think most pollsters, I think everyone with a decent head on their shoulders, honestly thought that 2016 happened because of a lack of voter turnout. That's what all the analysis said. And so 2016 was one of the worst elections for voter turnout ever. And then 2020 is one of the best, the best, the most voter turnout, the highest percentage of voter turnout this country has seen in like 100 years. And it's just as fucky. This time the gods of the Electoral College swung it just the other way, but just fucking barely. It's
still one of those things too, where we mentioned this earlier on, where it's the highest voter turnout we've ever gotten, and what we've come to realize is that 70 million people are Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. And even if we get Trump out of the office and we start going back to a sense of stability as far as just like dealing with this pandemic and all the other stuff, how do you deal with existentially the idea that there are 70 million people in this country that legitimately wanted more Trump?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know how you deal with that. Like, it's not just a matter of, oh, I'm reluctant. And maybe it's a little unfair. One of the things I've been scrolling through and finding pretty fucking fascinating is I think the Libertarian candidate this time around is the first time that there's ever actually been an argument for the spoiler candidate in elections, because when you look at some of these swing states and how tight the margins are, and then you look at the votes that the Libertarian got, it's like, oh man, okay. Thanks for that one, Biden winning by default. That's a campaign slogan and a half right there. Joe Biden, he won by default.
Well, and speaking of third-party candidates, that's another thing with the Democratic Party and Joe Biden that just did them no favors, which is all of the constant voter shaming and all of the constant, if you don't vote for me, then you're voting for Trump, and if you vote third party, you're a bad person, and like literally just the constant onslaught of, you can't possibly vote for anyone but me in this situation at every given turn, and I will give you no concessions for it whatsoever. And it gets kind of miserable because on some level he's kind of right, where you need to make the argument that, yeah, Trump is terrible and you need to get him out of office. And we did, hopefully, at this point. But at the same time, you start seeing...
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, stuff could still conceivably somehow get really fucking and swing back the other way, and then this whole episode's just a goddamn shit show.
Upload it anyway.
Oh, easily.
But then you get to this issue where we get Trump out of office and Biden goes in, and you have this problem where everyone says that at the end of the day, the election is not what matters, the organizing is what matters. But they still sort of demand massive sacrifices from people to vote in the first place. Noam Chomsky makes this argument every year, and every year he's generally right, which is when you're talking about the presidency, when you're talking about elections, voting for the lesser of two evils is just kind of what you have to do. Because as far as elections are concerned, and as far as politicians are concerned, those are the only options you're ever going to be given. But that's not the important thing. The election is just the thing you do every 2 years or every 4 years, depending on where you are. Everything else is what actually matters. And the election should really just be seen as a way of trying to shift the circumstances you're organizing under, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. And he makes this argument that like you can just take 10 minutes out of your day and go vote for president and then get back to doing the quote unquote real work. And he's partially right. But the problem with this argument is that for a majority of people, particularly the people that helped get Biden elected when you look at these margins, voting is not a once every 4 years, 10-minute process. It's 4 years of hell, followed by 9 to 10-hour wait in lines, followed by situations of voter suppression, followed by situations of voter intimidation, followed by failed income situations where you have to take off of work to go vote, where you need to go get someone to watch your kids to vote, where you need to make all of these personal sacrifices to go pull the lever for a candidate that will effectively do nothing for you just because you're told it's the least you can do. And how do you turn around from that? How do you turn around from this idea that voting's important, lesser of two evils, blah, 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 and count on all of these people that you need their votes to survive when you talk about marginalized communities, and constantly make their lives harder to the point where voting for them, voting for you, makes much more sacrifices on their end? Like, can you legitimately blame anyone for not wanting to vote for a Biden-Kamala Harris ticket in the midst of the biggest racial protests we've seen in this country since the 60s? Like, in the summer of all of these police brutality protests, your ticket's number 2 is a top police officer in the country. Mm-hmm. It's the most
is a top police officer, bullshit. And the number one, and the number one is one of the like parents of the crime bill that has, exacerbated the reasoning behind these protests. Is a crime bill. Biden is one of the biggest voices in the bill that has exponentially increased the amount of police funding and police power in this country.
Yeah, and I mean,
and power to the prison state too.
And it's just one of those things where, like, okay, fine, we will vote for Biden because he's conceivably better than Trump. But what on earth is Biden doing besides making our lives harder and making the case for him worse?
Well, he told you to wear a mask, and he's kind of funny sometimes in like an old grandpa way, but then he gets kind of creepy and uncomfortable sometimes in an old grandpa way. But it's like you can kind of forgive it when it's your grandpa and he says something a little sketch, but he's not your grandpa. It's just kind of, it's like you're visiting a friend's grandpa and he's calling you Sonny, and he like clearly thinks that you're another grandchild that he's forgotten.
I love that he tried to make malarkey a thing. I love that he tried to like brand malarkey.
It's just it's so awkward. Like, as terrible as it sounds, and I've kind of given up the sense of ever having any moral high ground again, because I've very much seen that it is entirely pointless to have the moral high ground. I'd rather just have ground. And so here's my hope in the next 4 years. Joe Biden and Donald Trump die together, like in some kind of freak accident where they meet to try to cool off tensions in a public space, and that they just simultaneously trip over each other and bash their heads open on the floor, and they're both very old, so they have no chance of survival. Then Kamala Harris is president, which also sucks, but like, I think Kamala Harris could have like that Obama energy to a certain extent. It's like, oh, the first, woman of color president. That's really impressive. It's so inspiring and impactful. And I can just kind of, roll my eyes at that side of things. Like, yay, great. Only she wasn't a fucking cop. Like, I could deal with that, and she might actually be, at least diversity points inspiring to people. I don't fucking know. So yeah, that's my rosy picture for the next 4 years. Again, look at Bernie Sanders, an actual activist. Not that he's like the best activist or anything. Like I still think some of the cult of personality stuff that jumped up around Bernie is pretty fucking ridiculous. And I was like, well, god damn, maybe it's best that he didn't get in office, because then your own personal Jesus isn't in the fucking president. You actually have to pay attention to what's going on.
The Bernie thing is interesting too, because it is still kind of up in the air if Bernie would have won in a landslide if he was the nominee. And I mean, I can tell you this much. I feel like if Bernie was the nominee, it would have been a much more decisive victory than it would have been for Biden. But with the kind of turnout you saw for Trump, it probably still would have just been as anxiety-inducing as this was, where it took us 4 days to get any sort of coherent result, that you would have had the same issues with Trump accusing everyone of being a fraud with no evidence. And you would have still had to reconcile the fact that 70 million people voted for Trump. You probably would have gotten more people to vote for Trump because there would have been more people who wanted to vote against Bernie.
Yeah, but then it would have also pulled more people out from the woodwork for the disenfranchised or the uninterested in voting.
Right.
Like, I was talking to a friend at work, and he pointed something out. So about 2.5 million people in Indiana voted. Indiana has a population around 7 million. That's just like everyone's waiting on results from Nevada. About 1 million people voted in Nevada. Nevada has a population of 3 million. Like, do you begin to see some of the fucking problems with these numbers? That gets very scary when you think about it. Like, the fact that there's just the majority of the country still, even after a record turnout of election, the majority of the country still did not fucking vote. And I really honestly believe that Bernie would have gotten, many more of them to vote. Because I talked to a couple people about, voting, and I had, 2 people tell me, oh, I'm not going to vote. Look at my fucking choices. Why should I bother? And I argued with him for about a whole 2 minutes, and I'm just like, fuck you. You fucking deserve this shit. I don't care anymore. All of you just fucking deserve this. Which is terrible, because, I woke up election morning, and I looked at the results, and I was like, no, it should not be this close. What the fuck? And I went and woke up Leah, and I was taking her downstairs to feed her, and I was like, listen, I'm sorry. I can't do it. I tried. I really have. You need to make this world a better place, because I've beaten my head against the wall, and I'm trying to make it a better place for you, but I don't know what to do with these people. So I need you to figure it out, kid. And that's just so fucking sad, but I'm just like, I'm so done with these people. And again, maybe all the fucking fear-mongering around Bernie is just what we fucking need. Like, anytime... I remember this really funny interview with Rand Paul, where he's sitting there talking to the interviewer about, healthcare, and, we want to create really big markets for people so they really have the chance to negotiate with insurance companies and get the best rates. And the interviewer just goes, well, I mean, isn't that exactly what a national, healthcare plan would do? Is it would create the biggest bargaining pool, which would be the American people, and then they could get the best rates imaginable. He goes, oh yeah, if you want to get all socialism, and then we can break out the gulags. And I'm like, man, the gulags sound really fucking good right about now. Like, just goddamn, I really fucking like. Can we just try a gulag just to see? Like a 5-year gulag plan. Let's just a 5-year plan with some gulags.
Introducing
the aesthetic.
The Geeky Gulag. Hi, I'm Ian Harrington. You may have heard of me from my popular YouTube podcast series, and we're here to bring you GG. That stands for Geeky Gulag. There's 70 billion of you. That will fit just right.
Just fucking like want to like take off the suit jacket and throw it over the shoulder, like put my knee on a desk.
Yeah.
You know?
All white background. We represent new Gulag. Not the Gulag you've heard of, but refreshed.
I mean, like, there's all the things that rich people like spend stupid amounts of money on just to do something with all their stupid amounts of money. And I'm like legit wondering if I could like turn Gulag into an anagram and make it sound like a retreat, like a like make it like seem like an exorbitant thing. Like, if you give over 75% of your net worth, which only the most wealthy of you can manage to do, you can go to an exclusive retreat where you will get to experience what it's like to struggle. Can you imagine the tantalizing feeling of having to work for your food? Ooh, yeah, very exclusive.
Oh, like those coloured folk? Precisely. Now, why don't you come and burn? Oh.
This is exactly why I will never be president. Fucking geeky gulags, man. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at mentally, which is, I don't know. In a sense, it's kind of sad. Like, I don't know if I've opened my eyes to the game or anything, or if I've just become disillusioned, or if I'm less of a good person because I entertain these things as jokes that I'm a little uncomfortable with myself with how much of a not joke it is at times. Like, if it were you present me with a situation where there's like the button that I have to press and Jeff Bezos is going to be eaten alive, and I'm like, how quickly would I end up pressing that fucking button? And that's the fucked up part. Like, I'm just imagining myself in a room with Superman, and he's like looking at me all judgy for really wanting to press that fucking button.
But like, that's the thing.
He's gonna have to break my hand and not press that button.
But that's the thing, though, is like, there is that image, right? And like, as resident, like, if we're using the example of Superman as just like the moral parameter for like, no, as hard as it is, there is good worth fighting for that we want to stick to, and we want to think. I think the decisive thing with that is, though, is this current political climate and these past years that we have been put through can drive people insane. Like, the amount of stress and struggle that was just condensed into 2020 alone, and then has been stretched out with this on top, and the amount of injustice that you continuously see, that is not a reaction to be ashamed about, and that is not a reaction to be like, ah, man, that is just your inner sense of justice starting to bang on the fucking ceiling and scream for something to happen, for action to happen. And to be honest, I don't feel like I think that can be a tool. I think that is like, yes, we're not all gonna pitch in and each bite a bit off Bezos for Ian's button plan. But as tantalizing as that might be, but there is like that sense.
I'm just saying, if we grill it, it's gonna be great. Long meat, long pig.
There is that sense of justice needing to be served, and the desire for things to change. That I think will lead, as much as Trump supporters have become in this radical sense of like this cult of personality. I think in exact proportion to that, you've seen a massive increase in activism and people becoming more socially aware, and people becoming to that space, becoming more and more inclusive and accepting more people and kind of changing more and more minds, to the point of where like you've got like people campaigning against those damn SJWs in nearly every field of media now. Of like, we don't like them ruining our thing. It's like, well, now everything is everywhere. People are kind of, I guess the word get waking up for woke, but it is kind of like because the other position is so loud and so crazy right now, actually sane people are starting to realize just how fucked up it is. And while it does lead to anger, and while it does lead to like that desire for like immediate responses, biblical levels of punishment to be dealt out, it also leads to people taking action and using their internet platforms to create fundraisers, to organize rallies, to go out on protests. You get actors like John Boyega who are making, or like even Ray Fisher, who are making like as big as a stand as they've ever made a stand right now. And like there's more and more of this happening in direct. It shouldn't need to be a response to the radicalists, but I'm glad that there is still a response at all. So that I think is the good thing you're looking at, Ian, is you're not becoming less of a person or like more of a bad person. You're becoming a better person because it keeps making you angrier.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that to some level, but there is some where like the rhetoric doesn't feel like rhetoric anymore. It feels like, no, like legitimately, you offer me a plate of Jeff Bezos, I'm gonna eat the fuck out of that plate of Jeff Bezos, and I'm probably not ready for the moral implications of cannibalism, but at the same time, I really don't give a fuck anymore. I'm just mad, man. I'm just angry. There's a great news story I saw where they were in a mall. This was pre-COVID. They were in a mall and they had a pie, and they asked people to divvy up the pie across several plates, and each plate represented a wealth bracket in the country. And they're like, all right, just however you think that the wealth is dispersed among these brackets of the country, divvy up this pie. And people like had a general sense of, okay, the poorest have barely anything, so they got like a little tiny sliver of pie, and then like the middle class got like a somewhat reasonably tiny piece, like if you were on a diet. And then like the wealthy got, like a good big piece, and then like the super wealthy got, the rest. And they're like, okay, I mean that's close, but you're not quite there. And then they actually divvy up, and like the fucking poor get like a couple crumbs, and it gets more and more ridiculous. And then they go at the end of the story, they're like, oh, the nice thing is, this is not the country's wealth, this is a pie, and so we all get a piece of this. And one of the ladies that divvied up the pie was like, rich people pie. And I was like, whoa, she knew what she was doing. She knew exactly what she was doing. She said, eat the rich on national television.
That's amazing.
That lady, there's no way you accidentally say, rich people pie. Oh. Yeah, I don't know. It's a mess. What else is there worth talking about in all of this? What do you think the next Supreme Court justice nomination process is going to be like under a Biden presidency and a McConnell Senate?
Probably going to look a lot like what happened with Obama, which is gets stalled out the whole time.
Really? Like say fucking he comes in and I don't know, Thomas like dies of just being a bitch. Like just his excessive being a bitch ass bitch fucking finally kills him. What happens? Day one, you really think they can drag out a nominee for 4 years?
Okay, when Trump made his nominee and Biden came out and said that he would be willing to confirm her just to show good faith, I think when that, which is complete bullshit, like I just want to hang on how much bullshit that is, but when the bar is that, and if we pretend that a justice dies and we have the opportunity to add in another one, I really don't know if I have any faith in a Biden-led Democratic Party to push for a nomination, and there is no way McConnell's going to want to confirm one. I really don't think you'd see any rush whatsoever on either side. Like, at least to Obama's credit, Obama tried, he just couldn't push it through. I don't even think Biden has the balls to attempt to push it through.
Which is insane, because you think about this fucking latest nutcase that they put on. They did that shit in what, under a month?
Literally like 3 weeks, maybe less.
Yeah. Poor Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She held on to life for so long, through so much disappointment.
To be fair, it is also kind of her fault.
Yeah, no, certainly.
Okay, just want to make that clear.
No, I mean, I'm not, again, the idolization of political figures is about the dumbest thing you can fucking do. I look up to no politician, goddammit, not throughout history. There are a couple stories I like about Alexander the Great, and that's about where it ends for me. Like, just the fucking, the notion of the idolization of political figures is terrifying. Like, again, yeah, I would have voted for Bernie in a heartbeat, but like the cult of personality around him scared me just as much, to be honest, for completely different reasons. But still, I don't know. That's one I've been thinking on, because it's proven that you can put a Supreme Court justice on the court in 3 fucking weeks if you just don't give a fuck. They've changed the rules to where it just requires a simple majority, not a super majority anymore, to approve a Supreme Court justice. So god damn, what if they really did fucking pack the court? That would have been hilarious. Fucking 15 Supreme Court justices? It would have been like a fucking clown car when they all come out for those fucking photo ops.
I see that now. It's a clown car full of people in black robes.
I know. It's just fucking Brett Kavanaugh could have gotten all his handsiness in the background and been like, sorry, it's just such a tiny car. I'm a little drunk. I just really like beer. Man, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything left to say. 2020 is by no means the election that was going to be as decisive and as progressive as people had hoped. Somehow or other, the Republican Party has now been in charge of the Senate and will continue to be in charge of the Senate for the last decade, which is just awful. Like, the Democrats are incompetent, but at least they sometimes kind of stumble into accidentally doing something worthwhile, whereas the Republicans are literally just super villains at this point. I don't know, man.
Evil will always
what
triumph because good is dumb. It is almost legitimately like a supervillain movie, because when the fuck have you ever read a superhero team-up book where the supervillain team's the one that's infighting and has to learn to work together?
Man, I think I know what I want to make a fucking, like, original comic series now. The Legion of Doom, but it's just like the fucking, like, The Office.
I'd watch the shit out of that.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know. It's a nutso-futso case, bruh. Yeah, I have no high hopes for the next 2 years, much less the next 4 years. Every fucking idiotic decision Biden makes is going to be put under a microscope. I'm not even going to have the pleasure of not having to hear from Donald Trump, because every single chance they get, the media is going to reach out to him to ask what he would have done in this situation or what he thinks of what Biden's doing, and Trump won't even have a semblance of grace. Like, at least Nixon and Kennedy, they didn't actually have any grace. It's kind of interesting to look at the contested, or potentially contested, election between Nixon and Kennedy in 1960, and how there's this image of Nixon as like this graceful loser who's like, yeah, no, he won, it was tight, but he won, and that's just the way it is, so I'm bowing out. Well, meanwhile, in reality, he's like, that was his public face, and meanwhile the Republican Party was challenging states that, like, that weren't even like close, just to try to fucking overturn the election at the final hour until the electoral college voted. So you've got like that public face that Nixon gave, but Donald Trump's not even gonna have the grace for that. It's just gonna be fucking a nightmare. It's gonna be so bad, guys.
He's literally going to be dragged out kicking and screaming. And I mean, it also just sort of speaks to this problem of you elect the new president in November and they don't take office until January. And so now there's this like month and a half period where he's going to either make things exponentially worse just out of pity, or we're just going to spend the entire month and a half dragging this process out. Because like
I think what I'm most excited for is Inauguration Day, because usually there's like that whole handshake and the former president sits and watches the president-elect's, inauguration speech. I can just fucking imagine like Biden's giving his fucking rambly old grandpa speech, and then fucking Trump's gonna come and take the mic and be like, it's rigged, I'm re-swearing the oath, look, there's my hand on the Bible, oh wait, this isn't the Bible, this is a porno mag, there we go, there's my hand on the Bible, so now I'm president again.
Oh god, it's gonna be such a shit show. Although, to be fair, I am legitimately kind of excited to watch another round of Republican primaries. Because those things are so fucking funny.
Oh my god.
Those are like the best drinking games.
Yeah. No, I hate black people more. Oh no, you don't even understand. I am a black person and I hate black people the most.
It's gonna be such a shit show. And they're all gonna try and act like Trump. That's the thing, is that like if he's not running, they're all going to try and put up his persona, and it's gonna be so funny.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. It's gonna be a good old time. And I don't know, like if anything, the Republican establishment has behind closed doors just fucking hated working with Trump, but now they realize they can't lose the voter base that he brings in, so I have no idea how they're gonna keep him from running again. It might be just as an interesting little historical factoid to have another president that's served non-consecutive terms. Maybe that'll be worth it, for the trivia nights in 2,000 years. Not the ones held in bars; those won't be a thing anymore. It'll be the apocalyptic, atomically radiated cave trivia nights.
You think we'll be able to go out into the world again by 2024? It'd be nice.
I'm really am hopeful that it's going to happen well before that. Maybe stupid hopeful, but like that. How's that whole Operation Warp Speed thing going? It's got a cool name. It has to be going somewhat well, right?
You would hope.
I mean, props for picking a cool name. Let's give him credit where it's due. Oh man, maybe that's what I need to do. That's got to be a position in government, right? Ministry of Cool Names. I just like pick out like cool project names. Like I think that's why the military has the appeal that it does. Is they just got like really cool names for things like fucking Operation Pegasus. That's dope. All right. I think we're done. I think
as
we can stop here.
Or as an episode.
I mean, this is Geeky Gentleman History Month, and it's fitting that we're talking about the end of history. As an episode, hopefully. I mean, people have been predicting the end of the world since the beginning of time, and people have also been complaining about previous generations. Or no. People have also been praising previous generations and bemoaning the current one since the beginning of recorded human history. Like there's a chapter about that in the fucking Iliad and the Odyssey, the oldest recorded written work. It's just like where they're just talking about how people used to be better and now they're shit and they're always going to be shit from now on. And I'm like, well, I guess that's refreshing that it's kind of always been this way. So there's that. I don't know. I think we'll survive. Maybe this will be the rest of the world's cue to really step up and just make America apparent for the idiots that they are. Maybe we can get invaded. I remember a fucking Romney ad where it was like, it was in Chinese, believe it or not, where they were like, it was like a Chinese classroom, and this guy was talking about all the problems in America and how China used that as an opportunity to like take it over, and like that's why we own them now. And then they all fucking like laugh, and it was like, vote Romney to prevent this from happening. And at the same time, I'm like, man, that's a possibility I haven't thought of. What if we get conquered?
Romney's
That'd be
good time
dope.
again.
That's how I opened this episode, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, what if we just got like conquered? It'd be beautiful.
It would save me plane tickets, that's for sure.
Uh-huh.
It'd be nice to have a kind of dual citizenship too, wouldn't it? China.
Yeah, you know, you're like, okay, I surrender to the Chinese overlords, or I don't know, the fucking alien overlords. This would be a great time for an alien invasion.
Whenever we got guaranteed jobs.
2020 couldn't get any worse. Oh! Freeze it up.
Frieza 2024. He's got my vote.
Right? Because these fucking... You've never met a bigger racist.
I know. I mean, just like, it'd be great. He'd be fucking like the sassiest world leader of all time. I'd be down. Yeah. Frieza for president. Meanwhile, Vegeta's like, they're like, I could have taken over the world too if I wanted.
It's like Big Vegeta lost in the primaries.
Yeah, Vegeta lost to the primaries. That's the fucking political parody. Why did we wait so long? Now we've got to wait like another 4 years before we can make this video. What if Vegeta and Frieza ran for president? It's gonna be so good. We have 4 years to script it out. It's gonna be the best Geeks for Fun video of all time. Alrighty, I think that's it for the episode. What are we talking about next time? Whose pick is it? I kind of hijacked the pick.
It's my pick this time, and I have one specifically which should be good to do. It's one of mine too. I discovered recently, but it's kind of fitting given we've basically been talking about Nazis this episode. I want to talk about the Kieran Gillen comic Uber. Which is World War II, first 11 issues, and it's about what if the Axis powers discovered superpowers near the end of World War II, but without any of the power fantasy or any, like, it's a historical document, effectively, very heavily researched in like that Gillen style, and it's fascinating, and I want to talk about it.
All right, should be not a good time, but should be a time.
That's a very good description. There is no good times to be had here.
History Month, the month of depression. That's the real challenge. Someone pick a happy History Month topic. Maybe we can talk Zorro at some point. Yay, okay. All right, everyone, that'll do it for us. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the philosopher.
I am the champion of the oppressed.
And I'm just Steve.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.